I'm burned out and I don't know what to do next. Hey, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the two different things that you could do to change your situation, to relieve the burnout, or to completely remove it altogether. Let's jump in. If you watched our last episode, we talked about the story of burnout, how it all got started in research, and how it's been fumbling ever since its discovery. Scientists have been looking at all sorts of reasons as to why are people burnt out and what can we do to help them get rid of the burnout. And unfortunately, the research is not very impressive in nature. But in this session, we're going to be talking about what are the things that you can do to change. And, I feel like this is an I told you so moment because all of the research looks at prevention, right? What you need to do to prevent becoming burned out. And if half of the population is already burned out, isn't it a little silly to think about prevention at this point? And things are only getting worse as we track things over time. People are more and more burned out. So what should we do? How can we change the situation? There are two solutions to solving your burnout problem, from my perspective. You can remove yourself from your environment, or you can change your environment. Unfortunately, as I've been harping on, most of the research just looks at individual outcomes versus changing your environment. This quote comes from the World Psychiatry Journal back in 2016, and it states, "Intervention may occur on the level of the individual, work group, or an entire organization. In general, the primary emphasis has been on individual strategies rather than social or organizational ones, despite the research evidence for the primary role of situational factors." Said in layman's terms, we have not been trying to change organizations very much. You and I can't rely on your boss or your boss's boss or your boss's boss's boss to change your situation. Why? They have other priorities. They're trying to run a business or a nonprofit. They're trying to make things stay afloat. Changing the environment to them probably doesn't seem like a very valuable use of their time. Granted, even though if they did, there's plenty of research to dedicate in the burnout world that fixing the environment makes more happy, productive, and money-making people. So as we discussed in the previous episode, there are 6 mismatches between job and person to cause burnout, and they are burdensome workload, lack of control, insufficient reward, breakdown of community, unfairness, and values conflicting. And so these things need to be addressed. So by taking one of these issues, the way forward that we're going to talk about is changing the environment. If you can change your environment, if you could make one of those mismatches fixed, potentially it could fix the burnout and in turn fix some of the other issues that could be happening. But the first step to go down this path is to acknowledge the truth. So what I'd like to do is take you through a few steps of my own and include also Christina Masloch and Dr. Leiter's book, The Truth About Burnout, and the steps that you can take to change your environment to prevent or reduce or remove burnout from the workplace. Now, one step that I think I need everyone to take is to acknowledge the truth. You can probably pinpoint one out of those 6 areas that is happening in your workplace. Maybe you feel like you haven't been rewarded for your hard work and you're looking for something because of it. Maybe you feel like over the last 5-10 years, management has kept adding more and more and more and more with less and less and less resources, and you haven't been compensated for it. You haven't been given the support you need to do your job. If you can pinpoint one of those issues, I'm sure it's something that you've complained to someone about. Maybe you've talked about to your husband or your wife, or maybe it's just something that everyone knows in the workplace, but no one directly calls out what needs to happen next. And the next step is to take responsibility. If there's one thing that I know burned out people feel is kind of like a victim. They feel like the situation that has happened is not their own doing, but it's because of the work that has made them in this way. Some people feel powerless about what they can do or how they can change their situation. Some people blame others for what has happened, and they just, they're like, oh, if I could just give them a good smack, then, things would be fixed. It doesn't usually end well that way, but sometimes people feel that. On a side note, sometimes I work with pharmacists who are burned out, and we have to talk about ownership, responsibility. And they kind of want to skip this step usually. They put their hope in the future, and that future is in a new job. But sometimes that future can be in their job now. They've just argued with themselves for so long to say that this job is a waste of time, it's a waste of money, it is a waste of my life, and I can't change it. I can't make the situation any better. And what I find to be true is that it's easier to not take responsibility for your circumstances. That you can say to yourself, well, I can't change my boss, I can't change my coworkers. Wait, I've got a person on my team and they're a pain in the butt and they've been there forever. There's no way they're going to get fired. And rather than trying to be proactive and want the situation to change and improve, they would rather just ditch it altogether. And unfortunately, one of the things that I have to teach people through the coaching process is that you are responsible for your life and where you are today. And if you don't accept that truth, then it's very difficult to try to change where you're at, because you will always feel like a victim, like you're in a prison and that you cannot escape, you cannot get out. And what I find to be true for some people is that they actually don't change jobs outside of the company. They actually do something like a lateral transition into a new role or doing something different. I worked with a pharmacist named Zach, and Zach worked at a major retail chain, and he was not happy. He wanted to get out, and we started doing some coaching sessions, and we were working through trying to figure out, okay, what do you love doing, and how could that match a pharmacy career? And the more I asked him questions, the more I found he actually enjoyed things at his job. And there were certain things that he did that he truly found fulfillment from. But one of his problems was a manager who was making his life a little bit difficult. Well, by working through some of these issues and by kind of coming to terms with what had happened in the past, and honestly, just some straight up forgiveness, which was cool to see from him, he was able to transition into more of a clinical role where he was doing some health screenings on a regular basis for his job. And while I would say that was the end for Zach, he actually moved into a anti-coag clinic a few months later in his dream location that was closer to family in the great state of New York. Now, the next steps is more of a process, one that can take weeks, months, sometimes even years to implement in the workplace. I'm pretty sure anyone who's worked at a major company knows how slow things happen. And it starts with you. Leadership is required. If you want to change your situation, you're going to have to be the one that leads the charge. And I know that's a very difficult thing for many people to hear. I mean, think about all the people who don't want you to change the situation. The people sitting in the pretty seats in the high-rise office that want you to keep doing your job and not complain. If you don't change, then nothing changes and your work continues to stay the same. But if you are going to be a leader, then you need to do your research. You need to pinpoint all of the problems, all of the etiologies behind the problems. You need to do your research on what potential solutions could be done, what other companies potentially are doing to solve those problems. If it's working for one company, it may work for you too. So why not mimic and try it? And then once you have all of your findings, you need to present it to leadership, whether that's your boss's boss, or someone else, maybe a chairman, and get their ear, invite them out to lunch, take a moment of their time and show them how things could get better at work, how if they improve these things, not only are they going to be more engaged, more productive, but they're going to be happier. And that's a win-win for everyone. You need to think like a manager as you present these things, because if you just say, we want these things fixed, we demand it, otherwise we're going to start a union or something like that, that makes the conversation that much slower and everyone's going to be scared then. Take instead the road of we both can benefit from this amazing opportunity. The next step in this process is that it becomes a group effort. Everyone joins together and action steps can be taken. As you meet as a group and you talk about certain issues, you ideally can delegate out certain roles, activities, and things for people to do so that it's not all you, but you first need that buy-in. If your leaders don't buy into this new initiative that you will be leading, it will not end up in a great place. Then it connects to the organization. Ideally, the whole system can be changed through one group's efforts to change things over time, to fix these issues. And finally, the last step is that one outcome likely is going to change others. For example, if you change the workload issue and you feel like you have more time to be able to do all of your responsibilities, then that may make people feel like they have a better community. What better way to bring people together than to try to fix a common goal or a common problem together? And that community holds people in the organization. And so, as you can see, one issue fixed could solve another. And this outcome of fixing the burnout issues is a process. It's not something that can be done overnight or one and done. It is something that continuously needs to improve. Personally, I believe that every quality assurance program within a company should be focused on these issues, because it's not just about the product or the service that you provide as a company, it's about your people. And if they aren't happy, soon your customers will not be happy. So this is the process that anyone could start to fix these burnout issues. You shouldn't rely on anyone to try to fix them for you. It's up to you to do so. But let's say that for a moment, and imagine with me here, that your company fixed all of these issues, that the main problems that you have are solved. Would you still stay at the company? Would you enjoy the work that you're doing if all of those issues were taken care of? If not, then I would ask you, why are you staying at a company that is furthering your own physical and mental demise? Because the fact is that things are not getting better when it comes to most pharmacists' workplace environments. Things have been trending towards getting worse, more is taken away, less is given, and we're seeing some bad things happen. Technicians being taken away, pharmacist salaries being decreased, no salary increases in years, very few advancement opportunities, people getting hours cut. It's not a great environment to be a part of. So the alternative, if this is not something that you would want to do, if you don't want to fix, then what should you do? Leave. I don't believe that there's a single research article out there that looks at how does leaving the environment completely, quitting the job, how does that handle with the burnout? I think everyone knows the answer. If you leave the environment causing burnout, you no longer are burned out. You're free. Your obligations have gone away. You don't feel that pressure anymore. You don't have a crazy workload. You don't feel like your job is no longer conflicting with you as a person. Mainly because you probably don't have a job, but let's say for a moment you do find one. Well, then, hey, you've got a new environment to deal with. Maybe they still have some of these same issues, but ideally, if you've done the right process to finding your dream job, you have eliminated those things from occurring, those mismatches that we had talked about in this ideal job. If you put a Japanese peace lily in a closet, it will die. Oh, rocket science, brilliant. But if you take the Japanese peace lily out of the closet and in the sunlight, it thrives. Imagine that. You remove something from the darkness and into the light, and it thrives. It becomes alive. The same is true for any burned out pharmacist. Remove yourself from the burning out situations and you're freer. I had one of our pharmacy clients tell me over the phone after she had gotten a new job, she kept her old job as kind of like a PRN one where she would just work occasionally on weekends. And she said that a patient went up to her and said to her, you are very different than all the other pharmacists. You're really happy. Why is that? And it was because it wasn't her full-time job. She could enjoy some of the things about her work because it wasn't all consuming. Her new job gave her the freedom, the flexibility to be creative and enjoy the things that she was working on. If you want to seek a new career path, I encourage you to start the journey with me. Go to thehappypharmd.com/start, and we can join on this journey together to find fulfilling work for you. And finally, I do want to make some more notes here and to say, if you are burned out, if you're on antidepressive meds or you're on anti-anxiety meds because of your job, I encourage you to continue to seek medical help. I had one pharmacist in Canada who had to take administrative leave because he was so overstressed by work. And I think that's good for the soul. I think it's good to take a break from work. I don't think our culture in America in particular of working all the time and only getting 2 weeks vacation is stupid, just downright idiotic. We are burning ourselves out into an early grave. And I think leave can help, but unfortunately, even if you go on administrative leave for a time from a doctor's order, you know that you have to return. There's something that you have to change, and it is the job. If you don't believe in the process that I talked about earlier, about how you can start changing your work environment, I sympathize with you. I worked at a national organization. I did not believe for a moment that I could change all of our systems to make my job better. Maybe that was a little bit of victim thinking, but I looked for a brighter future elsewhere. I think you can too. That's why I encourage you to start this journey with me at thehappypharmd.com/start. I don't think you need to stay in your current job, especially if you're burned out or if you're taking drugs because of your job. How idiotic is that? Really? We're pharmacists. We're meant to be helping others with their own health. And yet our jobs are killing us. We didn't even talk about in this burnout series about the mental health of pharmacy and about how I discovered with CDC data on mortality that we have the 14th highest suicide rate out of 480 occupations. That's crazy. It is insane that that's the case. You completed a PharmD degree or a bachelor's. That's something that very few people can do. You are capable of a lot, and I believe that you're capable of finding a great job in pharmacy, solving real problems that people have and making the world a better place. I'm excited that I get to be a part of this journey with you. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time. And I'd love to know in the comments, what kind of plans do you want to take to battle burnout? If you know someone is burned out, share this episode, hit a like, give a subscribe. We love that kind of stuff because that's what we thrive on here. I eat a piece of cake every time someone subscribes. It's just the way it goes around here. And then I got to go run a 5K run after. But I appreciate you, and I want you to know that you don't have to stay burned out. I'm excited to see where you end up next in your career. And it's our goal here at the Happy PharmD in 2019 to help 500 pharmacists transition into new jobs. I hope that you can become one of those pharmacists. So until next time, sayonara, and thanks again for listening.